Welcome to the Big Mike Fun Podcast, where you'll learn about advanced wealth building strategies from real estate investing to creating massive ROI and secured retirement profits. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab a notepad, and lean in, because Big Mike has got the mic, starting now.
Welcome to the Big Mike Fun Podcast. I'm the Big Mike Zlotnik. Today it is my pleasure and a privilege to welcome Gabe DaSilva. Hi, Gabe.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, man. Beautiful Tuesday here in New Jersey, so can't complain.
That's right. The weather is getting a whole lot better here in the Northeast, and I'm right over the Hudson River here in New York. So that's great. Gabe, could you tell us a little bit about your family? And just I'll do a short intro. Gabe is a founder and president of DaSilva Group Inc. Is a serial entrepreneur with humble roots, second generation builder, and originally, I guess, from Portugal. And he's a developer, heavy value add projects here in, I guess, New Jersey. And tell us a little bit about you, your family. As I like to correct the jokes, wife, kids, cats, dogs, whatever works for you.
Yeah, well, like you alluded to, I'm a second generation builder. Took up the craft, kind of following in my dad's footsteps, just took a different approach to what it is that he'd been doing for many years. We are more process and systems oriented, more about scale, less about doing everything with your own funds and more about using OPM. And we went from single family cosmetic rehabs to ADA levels and additions to new constructions. And now we're applying that same core skill set to commercial assets. But the origin story is that I am a serial entrepreneur. Just this February was my decade-long anniversary in the world of entrepreneurship.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That is, 1% of entrepreneurs make it 10 years, right? So that's a blessing, and I'm super thankful for that opportunity to have been able to do what it is that I want to do for this long. And at first that was food. My foray into entrepreneurship started first with food. So I owned and operated a restaurant for a few years, ultimately sold that to a partner and transitioned into real estate, which is what I had been entrenched in as a child, right? Growing up around the kitchen table, looking over my dad's shoulder as he reviewed blueprints and crafted proposals and bids and all those things. Subconsciously, you're picking so much of that up as a kid, you don't even realize it. And after the food service stint, transitioning into real estate just felt so much more natural, just the lexicon and just everything about it. I'm blessed to speak the language, right? So I've got Portuguese and Spanish kind of in my back pocket, and those things are critical as you scale a operations business, a real estate fix and flip operation. And so, yeah, I'm a single guy. I'm turning 40 this year, and focused on faith, family, fitness, finances, and freedom. Those are my 5 buckets. I mean, we can unpack as much or as little of that as you care to, but that's kind of how I structure my life.
That's great. I like you have a few family, fitness, freedom, right? That's great. That's really important. So let's shift into a little bit more into what are you building today? Give us an idea of some of the projects you're working on today. Commercial or multifamily, whatever you're working on.
Yeah. Well, if you go back, like to piggyback off the origin story, my first project was a cosmetic rehab turned gut reno, right? Totally unintentional. I mismanaged
what
the entire
kind of property?
thing.
Is it single family?
Ago. That's right. Yeah, it was a single family. My intention was to go in there and just refresh this house, quickly put it back on the market. I mismanaged the demo and wound up with a fully gutted house before I knew it. And ultimately, that was a blessing in disguise. I went on to fully renovate that house, the kitchen, the bathrooms, everything. And it yielded me a better ROI than I had modeled originally. And so that kind of just like opened my eyes to the possibilities of these larger value add rehabs. And that's what we went on to do, always and ever just incrementally scaling that. So from a cosmetic rehab turned gut rehab to then an addition to then an ADA level to then some new construction projects, all in the single family space. until just recently, where we've decided to take that same skill set, that core competency, which is construction heavy value add type rehabs, and we're applying that to commercial now. So doing our first commercial asset. If you can flip a house, you can flip an office building, right? The time, energy, effort, the dollars, it's all commensurate, right? I like to say, but what's different, what's exponential, what's not linear is the ROI. The ROI will be greater on those bigger projects. A lot of folks just don't get into the bigger projects because they're overwhelmed by the financial, like the financing of the project, or just the extent of the construction. And so anyway, we've got a good handle on those things, and that's how we've scaled it to where we are now. Still doing the cosmetics, still doing the add levels, still doing the new constructions, but now also doing these commercial ones.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we all want to scale with growth. The really important question today, given what's going on in the construction industry, the massive inflation of the cost of materials and labor, how are you dealing with it? Because whatever you try to budget, you have to be prepared that you're going to blow the budget.
Yeah. Well, you have to, more than ever, you have to buy right, because if we're thinking about what the last few years have done, like, people have been successful despite themselves, right? People have gotten into rehabs they had no business getting into. They've overpaid, they've mismanaged the timeline, they've blown the budget, and then the market saved their ass, right? 6 months later, it sells for more than they had modeled it for. It's been very forgiving. The market's just been that much more forgiving over these last few years. So, like, you have to get good now. You have to be good. You have to buy right. You have to manage projects tight, right? You can't afford to run over. You can't afford to mistakenly order the wrong size windows. Your lumber's got to be spot on, right? So how we're doing it is we're just getting better. We're just getting tighter. All the things that we've done really, really well and afforded us the ability to scale, we're just doing those things better. And going back to sellers, and we've never retraded on a seller until COVID hit. It's the first time in 5 years, 6 years I've been doing this, where I went back to a seller and said, Mr. Seller, like, I made a commitment to buy this from you at this price, but like, the world's been flipped on its head. I still intend to honor that commitment to buy this home, but I have to buy it at 10% less. I just have to, given where we are in the market. And sellers were very receptive to that. So we kept working right through COVID. So, I mean, I would just say, like, sharpen your pencil. If you're out there doing this, continue to do it, be better about it, be tighter. And if you make it work now, you'll be set. It'll only get easier from here. So if you can make it work now, you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, it's a game of specialization. It's a game of the professionals.
Yeah.
The amateurs usually fall through the cracks when it gets, execution has to get really, really tough and tight. So it makes a ton of sense.
They've gone away. If you think about it, how many emails were you getting from wholesalers pre-COVID, right? 2, 3 emails a day in my inbox to now 2 or 3 a week. A lot of those guys have faded. They've gone back to doing whatever it was that they did full time, or they've gone and gotten jobs, right? They weren't conditioned, they weren't ready. And when COVID hit, they just tapped. So the ones that were prepared have thrived, not just simply survived. Like, we've thrived through this past year plus. So yeah, I think, speaking to your point about, like, the professionals, right? Like, those that are good continue to get better and are still around, and those that aren't have unfortunately faded away.
Yeah, it makes sense. The other question I had, it was a transition. You're transitioning from residential to office. So I'm just curious. So residential is super hot now. I mean, that it's hard to go wrong. Like, as if you alluded to the fact that the mistakes get forgiven because the prices continue to escalate, right? It's the tide keep rising all the boats, and even if your boat wasn't a great boat, now it's still getting the lift. But the point is, so residential is projected to be strong, and demand for housing versus the supply, demand is still far outpaces supply, and as a result, that whole business feels pretty solid if you can execute well. But now you're transitioning into office space. And office space really hit or miss. And what I'm talking about here is that COVID obviously impacted office to a degree. And here in New York, we had a lot of massive vacancies. I mean, we're talking about Manhattan got hit really hard. Here in Brooklyn, where I'm at, you see also substantial vacancy. Retail or some of the office, sometimes folks that would have taken retail can go into the office or vice versa, but it's the supply is still substantial. The demand is recovering, but it's not recovering at the pace you'd like to see. A lot of people are still telecommuting. The need for space has been reduced with technology, the Zoom, the way we're recording this, and other technologies. So the point is, what are you seeing on the office? Your execution for construction is probably similar. You have to obviously do the work. You have to make sure it's done on budget and time or executed well. But the exit price or not even price, being able to lease up the place could be more challenging today versus the pre-COVID. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, that's correct. I think that there are, within that asset class, there's specific niches that do make sense. So if you can carve up a larger office space into individual office suites, you're in good shape, right? Folks have been working from home with kids screaming in the background for a year, getting nothing done, freaking out. They need a breath of fresh air. They need a space that they can, a 12 by 12 box essentially with a window and then a shared common area with a fridge and a little galley kitchen. So if you can carve out office suites, that's an option, right? If you can retrofit space, that's what we're doing now for medical office or for childcare, there's demand there. That demand continues to be strong. So there's niches within the office, the commercial asset office class that makes sense. Generally speaking, for the most part, you're spot on. Like there's no shortage of office space. There's plenty of it, and there isn't demand to call for all of it. But in these specific niches, there is, at least in our market, and I suspect in a lot of other parts of the country, that's the case too. So if folks are out there, thinking on how do I get a foothold in that asset class in commercial, it's something to give some thought to.
Yeah, makes sense. There's an expression, I think it's a book. I'm just trying to recollect, but I think I read it, but the title is riches in niches. So you're right. If it's a niche type of office space, you could, like you said, the small office suite for get away from the house, maybe go back to the office and get a little privacy and can do the work. That makes a ton of sense. And you're right, service-oriented businesses still that are coming back, they need small spaces. It is difficult to lease big space versus the small space. The small space is a lot easier to lease. You get better per square foot. But it is something that has still a degree of uncertainty, and you have to be able to execute. But I agree with you. It is, office space is very segmented. The big office space is going to lose the demand, while the small office space for specific niches further will pick up some momentum. Are you doing anything else beyond the office? Are you doing any industrial, any of that stuff, or you just shifted from residential to office as your next kind of part of the journey?
That was the progression. That's where we're at right now. It's not to say that we're not looking at other things, looking at big development opportunities, looking at industrial as a way to convert. What we're seeing a lot of here is folks taking big industrial spaces and converting them to like gymborees or basketball or racquetball or things like that. It's a different business model, and I'm not well versed enough to say whether or not that thing will make sense in the long run. It's something that some opportunistic investors are looking at and are doing. And so I'm starting in the periphery to kind of pay a little bit more attention. But yeah, it's not my expertise. I don't claim to be. What I do know how to do is build. And so if the numbers make sense, we can stand it up. Like from a construction standpoint, there isn't anything I'm not comfortable doing, even if we haven't yet done it. So if someone brings you a deal and the numbers and the model looks good, like we're confident that we can stand up 100-unit mixed use, retail on the first floor, apartments above, like things like that they're not out of the question. They're things that are in the periphery that we're kind of paying attention to, but nothing in the pipeline, nothing working just yet.
Yeah, Makes sense. So let's kind of break it down a little bit on the construction side. Just kind of so what I've observed, at least kind of recently, like like you mentioned, the prices continue to escalate, and the result of cost overruns get forgiven.
Mhm.
But how do the primary issue is this: the deal flow is very tight. Finding these heavy rehab projects um, is not easy. It's basically you could find the project, but the price that the sellers want often is just almost cost prohibitive. It's too expensive. So I've seen people shifting into ground up construction as a result, where they can get the land and they control it. They don't have to negotiate with the seller and try to get a property, because if you do it as a kind of as a surgery, as a precision, few projects, you could still focus and find a few deals. But if you're trying to pick up any kind of a volume, you start running into the problems of not enough inventory, at least at the right price that you can pick up, so you can build in your substantial cost of increased cost of construction. So are you finding anything interesting in the potential new construction space? Are you still sticking with, let me pick up an older property and gut it out and do that?
Yeah. So both, like right now in our pipeline, we've got variations of both of those things happening. What we've found is as we scaled, as we started to grow and transition into new construction, we didn't completely forget those value add construction heavy rehabs, those gut renos, the add levels and additions. We continue to do those as well. What I liked about transitioning into new construction is that it was cleaner. So it was just simply easier to execute. A lot of that's done on the front end, right, in the project design phase, and then execution's easier as opposed to those rehabs where you're opening up walls and then finding things you hadn't foreseen. Regardless, though, what's really helped us, and there was a time where you could just pick these deals off the MLS, right? They were just listed and you would just pay whatever the asking price was because you were going to force appreciation so much that you didn't really have to worry. That's no longer the case. To your point, you've got to find deals. You've got to negotiate the deals well. You've got to find sellers that are motivated, right? They're not just trying to save on commissions. That's not a deal for us. We can't, like, if you just don't want to list with an agent, we're not your buyer. If you're looking to move in 2 weeks, you don't want to have to clean the house out. There's some underlying issues with the house. Those are the types of buyers, sellers that we're looking to work with. But one thing that's served us that I'll share with your audience is, as you scale, be mindful of how you can vertically integrate. So you're scaling across asset classes, you're still, our core competency is still value add construction heavy rehabs, regardless of what we're doing that too. But vertically, how can we realize cost savings with economies of scale? What can we buy in bulk? What can we warehouse and use and draw from? So material costs are hurting a lot of folks right now. I'll be honest, they're not hurting us quite as bad because we've spent years positioning ourselves as a distributor with a lot of the manufacturers. So we are our own wholesaler. We sell to ourselves. Our operations division, my supply company, sells to my operations division and to other investors and designers and developers and folks in our network. But it's something that came about 3-4 years ago at the Builders Show in Orlando, as I was walking the convention floor, realizing I was wearing the wrong hat. I was wearing my builder hat. I needed to be wearing my supplier hat, and approaching these booths as a supplier, trying to understand the nuances of manufacturer, two-stepper, distributor. There's all this different language, right? Like what that essentially means is that a bunch of middlemen touch it and tack on a little piece. By the time it gets to you, you're being gouged. And especially now, right? Lumber 2x4s in our market are $7.50 or whatever they are. They were $2 a year ago. These are the kinds of things that you need. Not that we're a distributor for lumber, right? That's not the account that we were opening, but just something to be mindful of for your audience.
Yeah, that's actually a brilliant idea. It's great to hear that you got into the distribution business. You basically got into the supply chain, and if you can enter the supply chain earlier, you can realize substantial savings for yourself and make a little spread if you're selling to others. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, we invest with a number of larger kind of developers or heavy value add folks in multifamily, and that's what they do. They typically concentrate on a given market, and then they have exactly that. They have warehousing. They buy with economy of scale.
Mhm.
We have one guy in India. We have now 4 projects and it's a lot of doors. I mean, one was almost 1,000 doors. So when you do that kind of economy of scale, you really wind up having your own warehouses. We wind up buying in substantial bulk, and again, some stuff you can get discounts. Some stuff, yeah, you could. The price increases if you need to buy more, unfortunately. But so, any other kind of thoughts on the how about labor side? So materials, obviously, massive inflation, as you said, from $2 to $7 in 1 year, which is crazy. But any thoughts? Well, I guess 2 questions. One, do you see this kind of cooling down a little bit, supply chain improving? Because one of the big problems for this massive price escalation is COVID broke supply chain or hurt supply chain. So are you seeing the improvement? Are the prices stabilizing, or they're still escalating at a pretty good pace? And on the other side, on the labor side, are you able to get your workers back because of unemployment benefits? I mean, it's been a big discussion. Construction workers, I don't know, what do they make, 20, 25 an hour? And maybe a little more, 30, depending, but it's competing with the government benefits. So are you seeing any of that?
So on the labor side, what I'll say is that we are fortunate in that we've got really good relationships with tradesmen, guys that have been with us for a really long time. Another thing I'll say about them, right, and this isn't going to be controversial, right? Like, Americans are lazy generally, and we've come to rely on what the government will provide. The folks that work in the trades, they're not wired that way. They're not from here, right? They came here in search of something more. They're not going to sit home and collect. They want to go to work. When they can't go to work, when it rains and the framer and the roofer can't work, those guys are frustrated. So they're out there doing work. Has the cost increased? Sure. They see the same opportunity to, squeeze a bit, just like everybody else does, because the retail, the end buyer, is willing to foot the bill for that. So yeah, prices have ticked up, but are they working? Yeah, they are working. Like, they don't have time for Netflix and chill. Like, these guys got families to feed here and back home. So my guys work. I haven't had that experience here locally. Was the second part of the question about
are you seeing cost? Yeah, inflation still going, the prices, they're still going up or stabilizing, where the price is finally at least flatlined, hopefully.
Yeah. I think my experience has been that things are starting to kind of level out. I've got opinions on why those things are happening and how much of that is actually supply chain, how much of it is gouging, how much of it, right? Like, I think the mills are still putting out wood, right? Why is it that if, like, the forestry is still happening, where is that disconnect? What happened, right? Like, trees didn't go up in price. Trees didn't get COVID, right? They're still breaking down trees. They're still milling lumber. It's somewhere in the supply chain. Somebody, I believe, is seeing this as an opportunity to just tighten the screws a bit. And so long as the government keeps making dollars, like they just continue to print funny money, there's more at the end of the line that the retail buyer will tolerate. So I've never seen so much work taking place. Through COVID, everybody's sitting home. They're getting tired of staring at their dated kitchen or their backyard, and they're redoing their patios, they're redoing their kitchens, they're putting in pools. In my neighborhood, I've never seen so many pools go in. So, like, and that retail, that end buyer has a lot of free money, has a lot of really cheap money to spend. So why not? Why would the mills? Why not? Why would the PVC and all those guys, why would they not, like, ratchet up the price? They can, right? And the end buyer will absorb it for now. At some point, that likely stops. When the printing stops, I suspect that's all going to stop. But for now, I feel like it's leveled out a bit. That's just what I'm seeing.
Yeah, a couple of really interesting points. I kind of I see your point. I mean, being an immigrant myself, it's a cultural thing. I don't want to make any negative statements about people are born here. We have a lot of great, hardworking folks, but you're right. Culturally, it is kind of immigrant culture. You come here to work. You come here to make a country for yourself, and you come from another country where things are a whole lot worse, and I know it firsthand. So culturally, definitely immigrants feel like they want to work. They want to work. They want to make a living. And again, nothing to say about American-born. A lot of super bright people here, and it's just it feels like the immigrants generally don't come with any kind of request for entitlements. So
no, they want to work. I mean, I feel when the weather isn't with us and guys can't work, we feel it too, right? They're disappointed. They're sitting home. They'd want to be up on the roof. They want to be like standing up houses. When they can't, they're frustrated. And I don't know that that's the case with a lot of other folks. And whatever, we're not making statements about like who is and who isn't lazy, but like with regard to labor, labor is out there. Again, you will be paying a slight premium because retail is willing to absorb that premium. So if they can get a retail kitchen, they're going to go do that, right? Versus doing like as an investor, developer, like you're looking for the builder price, they're looking to make the retail price. And while they can, I encourage my guys to go do that, right? If you can go make some money, go make some money. Just remember who keeps you busy in the winter, right? The winter, when winter comes, who's there? We are. We're always working, and retail won't always be there. So that's a way to kind of approach that conversation. If folks are struggling with the labor piece, that's a way to kind of look at it and think through it.
Yeah, long-term relationships do matter, obviously, and you're right. I like the winter expression. When the winter is here, especially in the Northeast, the number of jobs kind of falls a lot, and as a result, that they still need to stay busy. So it makes a ton of sense. Gabe, appreciate your wisdom. This was great. Any parting thoughts? If folks wanted to reach out, chat with you, if you're available, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So I'm on all the socials. At Real Gabe DaSilva, that's my handle. They can connect with me there. I still field and reply to all of my own messages. So I'm happy to connect with anyone who wants to reach out to me there. And if they want to kind of dive into our world and see what we're up to, my website, GabeDaSilva.com, is a great place to start. From there, I'd suggest linking through to The Build on YouTube. It's a docuseries we created. We had some videographers kind of follow us around, like running and gunning, day in the life type docuseries, so they could see what it is to actually be a real estate investor, developer, educator, like in today's market. So I get a lot of really great feedback. So I encourage people to go there. It's free. It's on YouTube. Go watch. It's a 16 episode series called The Build. So anyway, yeah, happy to connect with anyone on anything. Find, fund, fix, flip. Like if you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to connect with us.
Thank you, Gabe. I really appreciate your generosity and your sharing. And if I get a chance, I'll try to watch The Build on YouTube. So thank you, and have a great day, and enjoy the weather.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
Thank you for listening to the Big Mike Fund Podcast. To receive your copy of Mike's How to Choose a Smart Real Estate Fund book, head to BigMikeFund.com or visit Amazon and type Mike's slot name. Keep listening and keep investing Big Mike style. See you on the next episode.